The sheer power of just a simple thank you. Or maybe just noticing the good things that happen in your life.
Yeah.
It sounds incredibly basic, I know. But it's a practice that, well, science, ancient philosophy, even modern personal experience, they're all revealing it can profoundly transform your mind and your body.
Right.
And even how you navigate the world around you.
It's true. It really is. And what's compelling here, I think, is how something we often see as just, a social nicety, how it actually underpins such deep fundamental impacts on our well-being, how we interact, everything.
Absolutely. So today we're doing a deep dive into gratitude, what it truly is, how it works, and why it's maybe far more revolutionary than you might think. We've pulled together quite a stack of sources for this one, everything from rigorous scientific reviews, psychological studies, all the way to ancient Stoic texts and modern workplace insights.
Quite the range.
Yeah. Our mission is really to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge from all these different perspectives and help you understand how embracing gratitude might actually offer a kind of shortcut. A shortcut to being more well-informed and definitely more resilient in your own life. So let's unpack this fascinating idea.
Okay, so to start, when we talk about gratitude, it's really far more than just a fleeting positive emotion, right? Neuroscientists, in fact, they describe it as a genuine state of mind, one that actively trains you, sort of, to focus on positives, even when you're facing challenges, big ones sometimes.
So it's like exercise for the brain, in a way.
You could say that. When you consciously lean into gratitude, your brain actually activates specific regions. These are linked to reward, social bonding, and crucially, stress relief.
Wow. Okay, that's incredible. It's not just a warm, fuzzy feeling we try to conjure up. There's a real biological process happening under the hood.
Precisely. It triggers the release of key neurotransmitters. Think dopamine, serotonin. These are well known for creating feelings of happiness, well-being, and importantly, it also helps reduce stress hormones like cortisol.
Cortisol, right. The big one for stress.
Exactly. So it's a direct, measurable physiological impact.
Okay, but here's where it gets particularly interesting for me. Because we often talk about practicing gratitude, don't we? But some perspectives, you mentioned Stoic viewpoints.
Yeah.
They actually challenge that very notion.
Yeah.
What's the core of that critique? What are they getting at?
That's a crucial distinction, yeah. Some argue that gratitude isn't really something you can just practice, not like you'd practice, say, playing the piano. Instead, they see it more as a kind of situational judgment, how a specific kind of awareness pops up in your conscious mind.
A judgment. How so?
Well, like one Reddit commenter talking about Stoicism even called practicing gratitude trendy nonsense. Harsh, maybe, but their point was, if you could somehow train yourself to always feel grateful, you might actually lose the critical ability to judge when reciprocal effort is truly appropriate or needed.
Ah, right. Like it becomes automatic, maybe meaningless if it's always on. But then there's this alternative view that frames it less as a forced emotion and more as an awareness, like something you consistently carry with you, a lens on the world.
Exactly. It's more about an enduring capacity to notice, to appreciate the good that's present, even in small benefits or difficult situations sometimes. And this perspective aligns beautifully with what Cicero said. Remember his profound claim: gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all others.
The parent of all others.
Yeah.
That's a powerful statement. It really elevates gratitude, doesn't it, to the very foundation of character.
It does. It suggests it's fundamental.
So, okay, if gratitude truly is the parent of all virtues, that its benefits must stretch far beyond just feeling good right now. Let's dive into the impact on our psychological, our emotional well-being first.
Yeah, let's connect this to the bigger picture. Gratitude fundamentally reorients your attention. That's key. So instead of dwelling on what you feel is lacking, what's missing, it shifts your focus to what is right, what is present. And this naturally fosters optimism. It helps you genuinely believe things can improve.
Which is critical for perseverance, isn't it? Believing things can get better.
Absolutely critical. And it also just makes life feel richer, more meaningful. You start recognizing beauty in simple, everyday moments, things you might have missed. Dietrich Bonhoeffer put it really well, I think. He said, in ordinary life, we hardly realize that we receive a great deal more than we give. And that it is only with gratitude that life becomes rich.
Only with gratitude that life becomes rich. I like that. So beyond just fostering these positive states, does it also actively counteract the negative stuff, like stress, anxiety? Does it reduce those?
Yes, it seems to. It actively works against those cycles of negative thinking. Things like rumination, worry. It helps reduce stress, anxiety, and even symptoms of depression. Studies actually show that people who regularly practice gratitude, they report lower levels of cortisol.
And there's that cortisol again.
Yeah, that stress hormone, lower levels, which directly translates to improved emotional resilience. And, for those who connect with their faith, some sources highlight that it can deepen one's bond with God, strengthening faith, hope, love, and even offering the perspective that beauty can emerge from ashes, from difficulty.
It's clear it can transform our inner world then. But does this mental shift have tangible effects? What about our physical well-being? Does gratitude actually impact our physical health? Is there evidence for that?
Well, the research on physical health is definitely still emerging. It's newer territory, but there are certainly promising signs, really promising. Systematic reviews of gratitude interventions, they've consistently shown psychological well-being benefits. That's pretty solid. And for physical stuff, well, improvements in subjective sleep quality. Sleep. Okay, that's huge for physical health.
Absolutely. Better sleep was found in 5 out of 8 studies reviewed. So yeah, better sleep, which, as you know, has this massive ripple effect on everything else.
For sure. Anything else on the physical side?
There were indications in some studies, improvements in areas like blood pressure, glycemic control, asthma control, even eating behavior. Though it's important to stress, these specific areas are still considered understudied. We need more research.
Right.
But gratitude has also been linked to fewer common health complaints, things like headaches, digestion issues, respiratory infections, even dizziness. Less of those reported.
That sounds almost too good to be true, doesn't it? Are there any big caveats or areas where the science is still, figuring things out?
That's a really good question. And yes, the main caveat here is that more rigorous research is definitely needed, especially to draw really firm conclusions on physical health efficacy. Many of these studies, while encouraging, had some methodological concerns. Risk of bias. Things like relying heavily on self-reported outcomes or maybe unblinded assessors. Okay, so self-reporting can be subjective.
It can be. So while the initial findings definitely hint at a powerful mind-body connection, suggesting our inner state can indeed influence our physical resilience, the scientific community is rightly cautious. They emphasize the need for more objective, large-scale research to really understand the causal mechanisms. How exactly does this work?
Got it. So promising, but needs more digging on the physical side. Now, how does all this translate to our cognitive function, our thinking, and how we make decisions? Does gratitude somehow make us, smarter or more effective choosers?
Well, smarter might be pushing it, but more effective? Possibly. A particularly compelling finding is that gratitude appears to enhance both cognitive function and decision-making. It seems to increase clarity of thought, which allows for more effective weighing of options considering multiple perspectives. It also seems to improve emotional regulation, which helps you approach decisions with a more positive and maybe less reactive mindset.
I can definitely see how a clearer head and a positive outlook would be beneficial, especially for tough choices.
Yeah.
And there was some intriguing research you found involving the ultimatum game, right? Tell us about that.
Yes, that's a perfect illustration of this. So, research using the ultimatum game, it's an economic experiment where people accept or reject offers. It demonstrated that create gratitude. That's a person's underlying consistent disposition to be grateful. That trait was positively correlated with accepting even unfair economic offers.
Unfair offers. Why would they do that?
It sounds counterintuitive, right?
Right.
But it actually led to greater monetary gain for those individuals overall. Because they accepted offers others might reject out of spite or perceived injustice. The insight here is that this deep-seated gratitude, it helps people overcome those perceptions of injustice. It helps them downregulate negative emotions like anger or indignation, leading to better outcomes, at least in that game's context.
But just feeling grateful in the moment didn't work the same way, a temporary state.
Correct. If they just induced a state of gratitude momentarily, it didn't show the same effect on accepting unfair offers. This really highlights the importance of that deep-seated dispositional gratitude, that ongoing trait. It's about that enduring capacity to see the good, or maybe the potential gain, even when it's small or seems unfair, which helps people make more effective, perhaps more rational economic decisions in those situations.
Fascinating. Okay, moving beyond personal gains, mind, body, decisions, gratitude seems to have a really profound impact on how we interact with others, how we build connections. How does it play out in our relationships and social networks?
Yeah, this is a big one. Gratitude significantly strengthens relationships. and social support networks. When you express gratitude, genuinely express it. It actively fosters connections. It encourages reciprocal gestures from others. It builds goodwill. You create this kind of virtuous cycle.
A positive feedback loop.
Exactly. And in the workplace, it can even promote kindness and generosity. Grateful employees tend to be more concerned about social responsibility, and they're more likely to perform those organizational citizenship behaviors.
Ah, the OCBs. Going above and beyond the job description.
Precisely. Those helpful acts that aren't formally required, like mentoring new colleagues or helping out a team member who's totally swamped. Gratitude seems to fuel that kind of pro-social behavior.
It really sounds like it builds a strong, positive foundation within communities and teams.
You've hit on a key point there, the very evolution of gratitude. Some theories link it directly to motivating and maintaining social reciprocity, mutual helping. And this isn't just human. This behavior is observed even in primates.
Really? In primates, too?
Yeah, which suggests these beneficial exchanges might be driven more by emotional responses rather than just a cold calculation of indebtedness, like keeping a strict tally of favors. It's far more about reinforcing relationships. For future cooperation, collective well-being, it's adaptive.
Wow. Okay, so it's good for our minds, potentially our bodies, our decisions, our relationships. What about when things get really tough? The hard times. Can gratitude actually build resilience, make us stronger in the face of adversity?
The evidence overwhelmingly points to yes, it really does. There's a strong positive correlation found between gratitude and resilience, particularly noted in young adults in some studies. Gratitude seems to significantly enhance your ability to navigate adversity, to bounce back.
How does it do that? What's the mechanism?
It helps you to see benefits, maybe opportunities or sources of support, even within hardship, things you might otherwise overlook if you're just focused on the negative. And this, in turn, leads to greater hope, more optimism, and a stronger sense of inner power or agency.
So it's like a direct pathway to personal resilience. That means maybe recognizing lessons learned from conflicts, or finding growth even in really difficult experiences.
Precisely. It's about reframing those situations. Acknowledging the resilience you've already developed just by getting through past challenges, that counts. Gratitude isn't about ignoring problems, definitely not, or pretending everything is fine when it's not. It's more about opening the door to new possibilities, discovering newfound strength, even in the midst of difficulty.
Okay, we are definitely sold on a why. The benefits are clear. Now the big question, how do we actually do this? What are some practical, actionable ways people can cultivate more gratitude in their daily lives?
Right, the how-to. Well, one of the most highly recommended and frankly effective practices is keeping a gratitude journal. Simple idea. Writing down, say, 3 to 5 things you appreciate each day, or even just a few times a week. It really trains your brain to recognize the good more often.
I imagine my own gratitude journal could quickly fill up with just grateful for coffee and grateful for my quiet morning walk.
Yeah.
But the key is to dig deeper than that, right? Any tips for journaling effectively so it doesn't just become a repetitive list?
Exactly. You've got it. Specificity is key. So instead of just grateful for coworkers, which is nice but vague, try something like, so grateful my coworkers surprised me with that homemade soup when I was sick on Tuesday. See the difference?
Much more vivid.
Yeah. Go for depth over breadth. Elaborating on one thing is often more beneficial than a superficial list of 10. Focus on people over things. Often that has more impact. And importantly, don't feel you have to do it every single day. Research suggests writing occasionally, maybe 1 to 3 times a week, is often more beneficial than daily.
Oh, interesting. Why is that?
It helps avoid adaptation, where it just becomes rote and loses its impact, keeps it fresh.
That makes a lot of sense. Avoid the chore factor. What about expressing thanks directly to others? That feels like a core part of this too.
It absolutely is a huge part. Make it a deliberate habit. Thank people genuinely and specifically for their acts of kindness, big or small. There's actually a useful framework some people use. The recognize, acknowledge, appreciate, share, RAAS 4-step process. Helps make it intentional. And for a really profound impact, consider writing a heartfelt gratitude letter to someone you've never properly thanked. It can boost joy hugely for both you and the receiver. It's powerful stuff.
I love that idea, a gratitude letter. What about visual reminders? I find sometimes just seeing something can shift my mood.
You're right. Visual cues are great. Create a gratitude visual board, maybe. Photos, quotes, little objects. Things that vividly remind you of what you're thankful for. It serves as a daily, tangible prompt. Also, reflecting on past adversity can be incredibly powerful, too.
How does that work? Seems counterintuitive.
Remembering hard times creates this sharp contrast. It naturally fosters gratitude for your current state, how things are now, and it illuminates how far you've come. That journey itself is something to appreciate.
Right. Perspective. And for those who prefer maybe more active, mindful practices.
Yeah.
Beyond journaling or visual cues.
Lots of options there, too. You can engage your five senses more consciously. Really appreciate what it means just to be human and alive in the present moment. The taste of food, the feeling of sun. You can observe your thank yous. Ask yourself, are they just habitual, automatic, or genuinely intentional?
Checking the intention behind the words.
Yeah. Make a conscious vow, even just to yourself, to practice gratitude. Actively use language that reflects gratefulness. Words like gifts, blessings, abundance, whatever resonates. And interestingly, sometimes just going through the motions can help.
Fake it till you make it.
Sort of. Consciously smiling, deliberately saying thank you, even if you don't fully feel it initially. It can actually help trigger the genuine emotion itself. The body can lead the mind sometimes.
And of course, maybe you spread the good vibes.
Yeah.
Share it.
Exactly. Sharing gratitude counts. Spreading positivity by sharing uplifting moments or observations. Maybe on social media, maybe just in conversation. It reminds others of what they might also be grateful for. It creates a positive ripple effect.
Okay, so we've covered the what, the why, and a lot of the how. But, nothing in life is perfectly straightforward, gratitude included. What are some of the challenges, the nuances, the tricky bits in truly embracing this?
That's important to discuss. One really intriguing aspect is the cultural differences, especially in expressing gratitude. A systematic comparison across 8 different languages revealed something quite surprising. Explicit expressions of gratitude, like actually saying the words, thank you. They're remarkably rare in everyday, informal interactions in many cultures.
Wow. Really? Rare. That's a genuine eye-opener. It makes you think about all those automatic thank yous we utter, say, in line at the grocery store, doesn't it? Our English-speaking culture, which hammers please and thank you into kids, we might be a bit of an outlier then.
It appears so, relatively speaking. English and Italian speakers showed slightly higher rates in that study. English was around 14.5% of complied requests, resulting in an explicit thank you. But still, that's far less often than our cultural politeness ideals might suggest it should happen. It shows that social reciprocity, that give and take, often relies more on unspoken, tacit understandings of rights, duties, mutual expectations, rather than needing explicit thanks every single time.
So the universal feeling of gratitude might be different from the cultural practice of saying thank you.
Exactly. We shouldn't conflate the two.
That's fascinating. Okay, what about in the workplace? That's such a structured environment. How does gratitude play out there? Is it complicated?
It can definitely be tricky, yes. Introducing formal gratitude initiatives in the workplace. They can sometimes backfire, seem insincere, maybe forced, or just not one size fits all. Think about it. Appreciation is a bit like those love languages, right?
Yeah. People receive it differently.
Exactly. People want to be appreciated differently and for different things. What resonates with one person might miss the mark for another. Genuine gratitude tends to thrive when leaders authentically participate, model it. And when it's embraced organically, from the bottom up, rather than being imposed top down. Interestingly, too, focusing on privileges in the workplace, sometimes that can lead to feelings of guilt.
Guilt from gratitude.
It sounds odd, but yeah, realizing your advantages can sometimes spark guilt, which surprisingly can then motivate individuals to give back more or contribute more to the team. It's complex.
It certainly sounds it. And what about when things are just awful? It must be incredibly hard to feel grateful when you're truly struggling or facing immense hardship or in a toxic relationship. How do people find gratitude in those really tough times? Is it even appropriate?
That is perhaps the biggest challenge. It can feel nearly impossible, sometimes even wrong, to look for thankfulness in really difficult circumstances. But, arguably, these are precisely the moments when gratitude, if you can access it, holds its most transformative power. The challenge is to try and reframe the situation carefully. You might ask yourself, okay, this is terrible, but what, if anything, am I forgetting? Or consciously recognize the resilience you've already developed just by surviving up to this point.
Acknowledging your own strength, maybe?
Yes. Or identifying invaluable lessons learned, even from painful conflict. Again, gratitude doesn't mean ignoring problems or minimizing pain, not at all. It just means potentially opening the door, even just a crack, to new possibilities, or to a deeper understanding of your own strength and capacity to endure.
That's a really important distinction. Not ignoring pain, but finding strength within it. And finally, we should touch on the debates and criticisms. Around this whole gratitude practice idea itself, right? You mentioned some skepticism earlier, people calling it trendy nonsense or pop psychology.
Yes, and that's a critical perspective to consider. It highlights genuine philosophical differences. Some people do view the conscious practice of gratitude with skepticism, suggesting, as we touched on, that it might contradict, say, Stoic theory of mind, which tends to see gratitude more as a situational judgment, a rational assessment, rather than a trainable emotion you can just switch on.
Right, the judgment versus practice debate.
Exactly. And there are also valid concerns about what some call false positivity. The idea that constantly trying to feel grateful could potentially brainwash individuals or lead them to a less truthful, less realistic understanding of the world and its problems, a kind of denial.
I recall a discussion from one source, Hacker News, I think, that questioned if being thankful for a job just boils down to being thankful for the money, or if the work itself provides purpose beyond just the paycheck.
Yes, that's a really nuanced point from the source material. A valid question. Some argue, quite pragmatically, that without the financial necessity, many wouldn't do their jobs. So the gratitude is primarily for the income that allows survival or a certain lifestyle. Others, however, push back and say they find deep purpose, identity, and personal satisfaction in the work itself, regardless of the money. So it's not always simple.
And there was also some discussion I noted that got into more complex social territory.
Yes, there was, and it's important we handle this carefully, just reporting what was in the sources. One user, for instance, brought up a politically charged angle expressing gratitude, quote, to have been born in the good part of the world, which allows me to be grateful that we're allowed to sustain our lifestyles thanks to the exploitation of others, and I'm not the exploited one. Now, our role here isn't to endorse or critique that viewpoint, obviously, but simply to acknowledge that these critical perspectives exist within the source material we reviewed. It shows that the topic of gratitude, like many things, can intersect with complex social, economic, and political discussions, sparking very diverse viewpoints.
Absolutely. Important to acknowledge those complexities. Wow. We have truly unpacked a lot today, haven't we? We've seen how gratitude, whether it's a consciously cultivated habit or maybe a deep-seated personality trait, how it can quite literally rewire your brain, offer potential benefits for physical health, sharpen decision-making, and profoundly strengthen our relationships with others.
And we've also seen how it can be such a powerful lens for resilience, helping you navigate even the most challenging times, while also exploring some of those fascinating cultural differences in how we express it, highlighting that what feels normal or obvious to us isn't always universal.
Right. So this deep dive, I think, reveals that gratitude isn't just a nice-to-have feeling or, fleeting emotion. It's actually a powerful, actionable tool, something you can actively use to maybe navigate information overload, build that inner strength we talked about, and gain clarity in what feels like an increasingly complex world.
So thinking about all this, what does it mean for you, the listener, right now? Considering this profound connection we've explored between gratitude and resilience, here's a thought to leave you with. What small, maybe unexpected blessing from your day, no matter how tiny it seems any? What small thing will you choose to truly savor and acknowledge today, allowing it perhaps to subtly shift your perspective, even just for a moment?